What does head coach Jeff Hafley have to say about NIL, the transfer portal, and his offensive line? Well, we're going to talk to the man directly today on today's special episode of Locked On BC.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Boston College. I am your host, AJ Black. We are fortunate to be joined today by Boston College football head coach Jeff Hafley. Jeff, how's it going?
Good, AJ. Appreciate you and Mitchell having me on. It's good to be on the show.
All right, Mitch, you want to start it off?
Sure. So my first question is, what has been your biggest learning experience as a coach? Because something that you say a lot, and I don't mean to be mean, but a lot of it's usually after losses, but you say like, I got to be better. What's as in something you believed going into this job that has dramatically changed during your 3 seasons as a head coach? And where do you think you've made those biggest improvements? And where do you feel you still have the most room to grow?
Yeah, I think you learn. It's constantly a learning experience. Whether you're a coordinator for the first time or a position coach for the first time, if you're not constantly reassessing and evaluating yourself before others, then you're making a huge mistake. And I've been very aware of that. And I think whether it's after wins that there's some wins that I've said, I don't think I did a good enough job, and I mean it. And I don't just say that for fluff. Anyone knows me. It is what it is with me. And then there's losses where sometimes it is on me and I've made really bad calls or made bad decisions. Sometimes it's on other coaches. Sometimes it's on players. Most of the time it's on all of us, right? But you have to reevaluate after every single year, whether it's been the hiring of staff, whether it's been the structuring of staff, hiring of, personnel outside of our staff. I think one of the biggest things you want to mention is when you're an assistant and when you're a coordinator, you constantly bring ideas to the table, constant. People ask for opinions and you give them. And when you're the head coach, you're constantly making decisions. And that's probably the biggest difference. And I think that's the area that I've improved the most. You're used to just in year one, you're just used to being the guy that constantly, give my input and someone else decides, make every decision. And I need to. I've learned that I need to be part of the offense, the defense, and the special teams, and I need to continue to be a huge part of the recruiting. I'm the head coach, and I need to bring this thing all together in my vision, how the players are treated, how the coaches are treated. It needs to be one voice, and it needs to be done that way, in the way I believe things should be. I think I've become more demanding of the coaches, probably have been holding the players more accountable. Just little things that I've grown, but I think it's going to be constant, to be very honest with you.
All right. So most fans think coaches have 2 jobs, recruiting and calling plays. What is the most underrated aspect of college football coaching, either at the college or professional level, that most fans who are listening to this wouldn't understand or expect?
It goes a lot further than calling plays and recruiting. Just look at college football right now. Look what's happened, AJ. You got, since I've entered with COVID, in comes the transfer portal, then comes NIL at the same time. Those are things that they take up a lot of your time. The amount of time you have to spend with your team and connect with your team and connect with your players and get to know your players and get to know your staff. We live in a world right now where, these guys can transfer. We live in a world now where they can get pulled off your team through money, which is we can talk about that for about an hour if you guys ever want to sit and talk about that. I think one of the biggest part of the jobs is, things are hard for these players. You wear so many different hats. It's not all this kids in the office smiling. These kids have some hard times and hard days, and I got to be there for them. And they come in the office and we have long conversations, some good, some bad, some sad. Sometimes they need a hug. Sometimes you need somebody to listen to them. But it's not just coaching, and it's not just scheme, and it's not just recruiting and being on the phone and being on Zooms and getting kids on visits. It's about actually caring about your players and being there for them and getting to know them and understanding that things aren't going to be perfect, but you still got to have their back, and you still need to make sure that when they come up to your office, no matter what I'm doing, that they know they can come in and I'm there for them. And that, nowadays takes up such a huge part of my job. But it's one of the reasons that I wanted to come back to college, and because I want to make sure that these kids graduate, and I want to make sure someone's there for them when things are hard, so I can help push them through and show them that things can be okay and how they can be okay, and get them help when they are needed. Because at the end, there's not going to be many guys each year on each team that make it in the NFL for a long time. I want to make sure these kids are taken care of for the rest of their lives. And that's probably the biggest thing. You asked me what I'm learning. That's the other thing I'm still learning. When I was in the NFL, I coached football, and you coach football, you evaluated for the drafts, you got ready for the combine. This is way bigger than that, like way bigger. And it takes so much more time. And I like it because I like our kids and I'm here for them. And that's probably something, AJ, that people really don't understand. And it's not like a small team of 10, 12, 15 players. I mean, there's 85 scholarship players and walk-ons, and those walk-ons need to be cared about like your starting quarterback. And I think that's one thing that we have going for us, where, the class that we started to recruit, our first real class are going to be juniors. That's Donovan's class, right? So we're starting to get older. We're starting to get our guys, and we're starting to see that happen. And it takes time to develop, be there for them. It's not just football. It's holistically. It's on the field. It's off the field. It's academically. There's so much that goes into this that we got to make sure that we're taking care of these kids while they're away from home and developing them on and off the field. And I say that passionately because that is important to me.
Now, in a moment, we'll get back to Jeff Hafley, but before I do that, I want to tell you about Birddogs. Birddogs stretch khaki shorts. They're designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, give you an extremely sculpted look. Birddog shorts do exactly the same thing as Lululemon do, but they fit way better. Right now, I'm recording in my Birddog shorts. They're perfect. They're comfortable. You can use them for anything, from fishing to working out to going for a walk or just hanging out at your house and having a beverage. It is perfect. So go to birddogs.com/lockedoncollege and enter promo code LockedOnCollege for a free Yeti-style tumbler with your order. That's birddogs.com/lockedoncollege for a free Yeti-style tumbler. You won't want to take your bird dogs off. We promise you.
Yeah, I think I was at, I don't know if it was SEC Media Days or something else, but there was a quote from Nick Saban earlier this week or last week that said that his staff has 7-day work weeks, 44 weeks out of the year, which I think that's why a lot of people, there's like kind of there's like this rumor about a lot of coaches trying to get out of college because they're like, this is such an insane schedule that a lot of people don't really think about. So you kind of touched on it by talking about it earlier, but NIL is becoming an increasingly integral part of college football and college sports in general. What is your vision for BC's identity in that space and a path to success in that climate?
In NIL and transfer portal?
I have another kind of question for the portal, but yeah, you can kind of dovetail those two.
Yeah, I mean, because right now they go hand in hand, unfortunately, right? I think there's some really good things about the transfer portal, and I think there's some really good things about NIL. I do. I think the two together is a complete nightmare, and I think they just collided at the same time, and it was the worst possible scenario. Now, unfortunately, they're going hand in hand, and kids are transferring for NIL deals, some that aren't real, many that are in the portal, right? So my vision for NIL, I'm supportive of NIL, and I think our team knows that, and that's very important for me. So I think there needs to be some guidelines on it. I think just total pay for play and trying to use that NIL money and steal people off rosters, I don't think that's what it's meant for, and I'm not a fan of that. But if our kids are doing well in the classroom and they're doing good things off the field and they're doing well on the field, then I believe in it, and I'm fully supportive of it for our team. My philosophy on the transfer portal, I think there's some good in that too. And I think right now people are kind of, they're picking on certain people who are handling it some ways. They're questioning why some people are handling it other ways. I mean, guys, it's not an easy thing to figure out. Not everybody can get in, the same type of kid. Not everybody can get everybody in. And there's different ways to do it. We've seen some coaches who are trying to take in 60 guys. We've seen some coaches trying to do 25 guys, but then you're going to have to do it year after year after year. And that's hard, man. If you're not going to bring in and develop your players and build a team and build a locker room, I don't want to live in the transfer portal. I've said that since day one. I used it more this year than I ever have. Has my stance changed on it? I'm starting to understand it and get a better feel for who we can get, who we should get, right? And then I'm trying to see what we need. Do I need it for depth? Do I need to to create competition? Do I need it because we just lost a starter and I'm a little uneasy and I want to go out and get a starter? There's ways to do all that. And that's what I'm starting to see. And that's kind of what I did this year. But it also goes back to, I've really had 3 classes since I've been here, right? When you take that first COVID class, because I got here after the playoffs happened. When I had that first COVID class, that's like, it was a Raku's class and that group of guys. I want to build and develop guys. Donovan was 208 pounds. Now he's 252 pounds. And he's just one example of a guy that's grown and developed. He doesn't want to go anywhere because he's been a guy since day one that believes in us. We developed him. We gave him a chance. Now he's one of the core guys on this team that will probably be a captain, right? As a junior who just led the ACC in sacks as a sophomore. So I want to do this through recruiting and developing and create a culture that's really strong, that knows what it's like to be a BC man, that knows what it's like to play for us, that wants to be here, that wants to play with his team, and that wants to play with each other. And then if I can find guys that fit that, like some of the kids we brought in this year that fit the culture and fit the team and can help create competition or play for us, then yeah, let's go out and do that. But I don't want to bring in 25 and then all of a sudden say, we don't have anybody. The coaches, if I just wanted to, look, I had chances to leave after my first 2 years. I mean, you guys know that, right? If I just wanted to stay here for a year, bring in 25 guys, play well and leave, I would have done it. That's not what I want to do. We're going to build this thing. We got a good team. And we got young guys who have played and have experience because we've done it that way. Now we're sprinkling in some guys that are good people. It's going to make us a better team.
So speaking of development, Jeff, The Athletic recently named BC as Development U by measuring how many 3-star recruits turn into draft picks. You've overseen the development of Zion Johnson and Zay Flowers and some others like Donovan, as you mentioned, coming down the pipeline. What is it about Boston College that makes it such a fertile breeding ground for future NFL players, especially considering what kinds of players BC usually recruits, which are, from a 247 perspective, like 3 stars compared to other schools that are 4 and 5 stars? What is it about BC that has made it such a good school for developing those players?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, AJ. I think it's the type of kid you get, and I think that's what's gone on here for a long time. The BC kid, you bring in a smart, tough kid who's reliable, knows how to work really hard on and off the field. They go to class, they hand in their work, they show up on time for lifts, they work extra, they like playing with each other, they're workers. And, in the NFL, I've been around some free agents that turned into all-pro and Pro Bowl players that it's the same mindset. It's that chip on their shoulder. It's they always want to get better and that they're going to work for it and they are going to develop and they're going to keep getting better and better. And maybe they weren't the 5-star guy that has been told, hey, you're the man since day one. And maybe that fires them up. And maybe when that 5-star guy starts to say, hey, maybe I don't have to work as hard. Here comes whomever, Zay Flowers, Zion Johnson, right? One of those guys, and they work and they do develop. And all of a sudden at the end of the day, they turn out to be good pros. Because at BC, what happens is you have to do everything the right way, right? There's academic stress here. You got to go to class. And we got a lot of business majors. We got engineer majors. We got pre-med majors. So you're not just going through the motions. So when you get to that league, you know how to be accountable. You know how to show up on time. You know how to sit in the front and take notes. And you know how to leave late. You know how to speak to the coaches and get extra help. And you know how to put in extra work because that's how you made it. That's how you made it in BC, not only on the field, but off the field. And in my opinion, I think that's what you're seeing, AJ. And that's why those guys, look at Lindstrom and what he's been able to do. He's one of the best offensive linemen right now, right? You take a guy like Kuechly, who might be one of the best linebackers to ever play the game. And now there's more, right? Now we've seen AJ Dillon's out there, watching him do his thing. And then just the 2 guys, we've had 2 first-round picks in the last 2 years. And I think there might be one more next year, and there might be one more the year after that. But all of a sudden, we need to start where we need to be different. What we haven't had is we need more guys drafted, right? We need some 4th rounders, 6th rounders, 3rd rounders, 7th rounders. It can't just be the 1st rounder and then free agents. So hopefully as you start to see these younger kids on our team develop, you're going to start to see more of those too. And then that's when you get rolling a little bit.
So this is your 4th year on the Heights and your first freshman class that you brought in, they're now seniors and they could come back thanks to the COVID year. But some of them were probably going to be like, I got my degree. I'm going to head off to the NFL or whatever. So, but what have you most appreciated about that group of players, and who have you seen the most growth out of in that class?
Well, I remember I got here in the class signed, right? So Trapillo and all those guys who were going to be seniors, all those guys signed before I got here.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I got here. So a guy like Ozzie Trapillo, who's going to be a senior, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think I got hired late December. Those guys signed. I got here. And then I think we picked up Cam Arnold late. I mean, he was a January guy that we got late. And then the first class, the COVID class, that was our real first class. And that's Don. Those guys are going to be juniors. But answering your question, I mean, yeah, all those guys, man. I mean, Pat Garwell's back for another year. I mean, I've been around Pat for 4 years. Those guys have been around for 4 years. Vinny DePalma's been around me for 4 years. I mean, that's Sheeta. Sheeta's been around me for 4 years. I mean, there is a lot of guys like that, and I didn't have to recruit them to care about them and try to develop them and do everything I can. I love those guys. Those guys do mean a lot to me because everything we have went together in the 4 years. If you think about it, in our first year together, it's COVID. No one thinks we're going to play. We barely know each other. We get to know each other on Zoom, and this is that class right there. So I do give this class more credit because think about what they've been through. I mean, they went through COVID in their first ever year here in school. We're picked dead last in the ACC. We win more games in the ACC that year since 2009 with the 5 ACC wins. We only play 11 games that year, you know, because we were shortchanged the one and then the bowl game. And then the second year you go through, you start hot, you lose a couple of players, you beat Missouri at home, and then things don't go so well. But then they fight back. They fight back to make a bowl game. And then last year was hard for everybody, right? Guys were decimated at certain positions. We're not playing well. Shoot, I'll take it. We didn't do well enough, but they didn't give up. They didn't quit. We go into NC State and we beat NC State, right? So hopefully that will help carry through. And that's why I appreciate those guys because they haven't quit. They never stop. And that's why even a guy like Zay, right, playing harder at the end of the year, Vinny DePalma playing harder at the end of the year. Sheeta was hurt. I mean, Ozzie Trapillo's in there. That guy, he'll be a star. And there's a lot of those guys. I appreciate all of them.
We'll return with Jeff Hafley on Friday's episode to continue our conversation about this upcoming season and a few more topics that Jeff brings up. Now, in a moment, we're going to discuss some more recruiting news as next week's recruiting class of official visitors are coming on campus, and there's some big names you're going to want to know about. We'll get into all of that in just a moment. This is Locked On BC. I'm your host, AJ Black. Thank you all for listening, and thank you to every single one of you that have made Locked On BC your first listen every single day. Now, I had said June is a crazy month, and it was great that we got Jeff Hafley on here because he's got official visitors every weekend, he's got camps, and he's recruiting. He's busy, right? Well, as a fan, as someone who's following the recruiting classes, who's following what's going on with Boston College's upcoming group, this group is going to be exciting. So, if you follow along on 247, and I hope you do, you know that I've placed a couple of crystal balls for upcoming commitments. I put a new one in on Wednesday or Tuesday evening that I think you need to check out, and then go over to Eagle Insider and become a subscriber to find out who I picked. But in addition to that, this upcoming weekend number 2, is arguably the biggest official visit weekend BC is going to have this year. Because, get this, Henry Hasselbeck, who we've talked about on this podcast a lot, I think is QB1 in terms of the recruiting draft class. This is the guy that I think they're going for most. He went to Michigan State last week. He still got a visit to Pittsburgh in UAB. He got an offer from Arizona. He's the son of Matt Hasselbeck. We know his whole story. It's his official visit. And what impressed me when I look at the list is 14 official visitors coming next weekend. The bigger than last week. Last weekend had 11. But it's so focused on offense. It's almost like they're putting together a group around Henry Hasselbeck and going, look, we're going to get these guys to come in with you and entice him to commit. Just thinking that's kind of where I'm thinking with the way that this group is put together. Because you have, and this isn't behind a paywall, offensive tackle Gerby Lambert, 4-star, game-changing left tackle. This is a guy from Catholic Memorial, Massachusetts. He's got offers from Ohio State, Penn State, Notre Dame. Those are his other 3 official visits. And I know everyone going at home's going, nope, he's not coming here. Well, the fact that BC even got an official visit should tell you that he's not joking around when he picks BC. Like, you can go take an unofficial visit anywhere you want. But the fact that he's actually going to spend the time to go to BC means that it's in consideration for him.
And I think if BC puts together a good visit and starts their season off well, he's not a guy I would count out. You have him coming. You have 4-star wide receiver Keondae Henry from Texas coming. This is the number 200 recruit in the country, higher than anyone BC's landed since CJ Burton. And he has BC in his top 8. I'm telling you folks, if you have not checked out who Darrell Wyatt is yet, this dude is doing some stuff. He's their wide receivers coach, and the guys that he's got coming on, and there's a couple other ones. I'm not going to give you every name tonight, but just Keondae Henry is legit. A Texas wide receiver, big offer list, and he loves BC. He loves Darrell Wyatt. Wouldn't be surprised if he commits. You have Ronnie Royal, a 3-star safety from Alabama, and he's down to 2 schools. He's 4-star again, folks. So these are 3 4-stars: Gerby Lambert, Henry, and Royal. Why do I feel good about Royal? Well, his defensive coach, was Paul Rhodes. Who's Paul Rhodes? He is the outside linebackers coach at BC. So BC's got an in there. That's a potential, and I admit Lambert might be more of a stretch here. The other 2, BC has the potential for 2 4-stars just this weekend alone. How big of a jump would that be in terms of recruiting? And those guys are exciting. There's some other big names that I think you should go over to Eagle Insider and check out, because BC is in really good shape with this weekend. I'm excited to see what happens. I was excited last weekend, and I put in 4 or 5 crystal balls already. I'm really, really interested to see what happens this weekend. Make sure you come over. I get live updates. I talk to staff. I talk to kids. I get it all, and I want to share it with you. Thank you all so much. Again, on Friday, part 2 of our interview with Jeff Hafley. You're not going to find this stuff anywhere else. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you follow me at AJ Black 247. You can follow Mitch at Mitchell T. Wolf. We thank each and every one of you who make our show part of your daily routine. Thanks so much. We'll be back again on Friday. Talk more with Hafley. See you again soon. Take care.